We're a little desperate here. The Super Bowl just happened. Chiefs won again. There's no baseball. We've got 11 more days though. So thank
1-2. Swinging a drive toward right center. Back goes Robert. Back near the stands. That ball is gone. A game-winning home run for Chris Burrell. Can you believe it? Listen to this crowd.
to the Brotherly Cubs podcast. I am Zach, and this is my brother John. We are your brothers who love everything Cubs baseball. If you enjoy talking about the Cubs, then hit the subscribe button, turn on all the notifications, and join us every week as we dive into the power, the speed, and the best team in the National League. We like to start off each podcast with a playful little question for all 33 of our subscribers. Feel free to put your answer in the comments. Today, I ask you, John, if the Cubs are an NFL team, who would they be?
I'm going to say the Miami Dolphins. I think they're young and upcoming. I think they're a top team that's right on the fringe of making the playoffs. The Dolphins made the playoffs, but I think the Cubs are right there. They weren't too far behind making the playoffs. So I would say the Dolphins or even possibly the Chargers, just because they have a new head coach. They're also kind of, young and exciting, and we also have a new head coach as well. So what about you? What do you say?
I honestly don't know. It's really hard to draw a comparison because they're two very different sports. Uh, my heart keeps going out to the Rams for some reason. I guess recent victory, championship victory, and then basically selling, trading draft picks to get high level players, and then winning a championship, and then just kind of boom, it all goes downhill from there, sort of. But still an exciting playoff type team, recent success, but then the Cubs traded for Aroldis Chapman. They gave up a lot of players. They gave a lot of for Jose Quintana too in 2017, and they weren't developing players that well after that point, or in that period. So I feel like those are some solid comparisons for the Cubs. They're definitely not the Chiefs, that's for sure.
Yeah. I was thinking that maybe the Lions, but I don't know if they like, to have kneecaps as appetizers.
I think the Lions would be a good comparison of like the 1990s Cubs or the early 2000s Cubs. The Lions have just been terrible for so long. Finally, they got, into the playoffs and looked pretty good. But yeah, that's a solid comparison. I'll take it. We'll add it to the repository of comparable Cubs teams. We're a little desperate here. The Super Bowl just happened. Chiefs won again. There's no baseball. We've got 11 more days though. So thankfully we're getting a little closer to the start of spring training. Now let's move on to the latest news around the league. So PECOTA, which is Baseball Prospectus, their projection system, they have the Cubs projected at 80 wins, including Justin Steele to have an ERA above 4, Imanaga to have an ERA, not a typo, above 5. So they're
Yeah.
very not very bullish on the Cubs pitching. Fangraphs has projected the Cubs to have 81 wins. Their Zips projections, 81 wins. So that sucks.
Yeah.
But the purpose of this pod is I don't think that these are baked in. It's not really their fault. I mean, it is their fault, let's be honest. They could take an exception this year and wait to do these projections until no one is holding a gun to Fangraph's head and saying you must do projections on February 7th or something like that. You must do them. The news must come out because guess what? All these free agents are still available, and it's not fully baked in for the Cubs. They're not one of these small market teams that is said we're done. We might make a trade, but we're we're all out on free agents. Technically, the Cubs are in on some of these guys still. Now, who knows? Report is that one of those four Boris clients they might still be in on, but it's missing the Bellinger. It's missing the Bellinger signing if that does happen. So I personally think that they'll be better. They're going to add one of the four Boris clients. They might add two, who knows? And they're also missing Craig Counsell somewhere in there potentially. And I just wanted to read off before we go back and forth in this. I wanted to read off some egregious things that PECOTA said about the Cubs. I don't know if the Zips projections were as terrible about the Cubs, even though they came to a similar conclusion. So they had Steele at a 4.07 ERA. This is PECOTA. Jameson Tyone 4.33. That's about where he could end up based
Mhm.
on last year and his career average. Hendricks 4.6 ERA. That's way worse than that's a whole point worse than last year. And then Imanaga 5.08. How are you getting 5.08 on Shota Imanaga? He had a 2.96 career ERA in the second best professional league in the world, the NPB. So he was clearly good enough to pitch in the World Baseball Classic.
Right.
And he didn't, not like he pitched 8 innings, but no one was pitching that much in that series. And he looked pretty good against the USA players who he's
Yeah,
going to face some of those guys this year.
he struck out, was it Mike Trout? Is it to end the game or was it someone else?
That was Shohei Ohtani.
Was it sure hits? Oh, that
It's a
was
different show.
different show. Different podcast.
He, well, yeah, different SHO like Shota versus Shohei. I know he struck out either Goldschmidt or someone else, and he
He
got
did
some
strike
weak
out Goldschmidt.
groundouts.
Yeah. It was
Yeah, I
Goldschmidt.
mean that's a small sample, but he's not terrible. It's not like he's coming in with a 3.9, 4.2 ERA. He's not Jameson Tyone. He's miles better than some of these other guys.
Yeah.
Uh, another couple things that I'm laughing at right now. Alzolay 3.94 ERA, Julian Merryweather 4.09, Hector Neris 4.18. And just for reference, Alzolay had a 2.67 ERA. That's 1.2 points worse if their projection were to hold up. Merriweather had 3.38, so okay, zero point 0.7 worse is what they're thinking. Hector Neris at 4.18 ERA. He had a 1.71 last year. I know that's not with his career average, but I think
Right.
he's going to double his ERA, 2.5 times his ERA. I'm a little skeptical of all of the Cubs pitchers all sucking at the same time. If that happens, we're screwed.
We're screwed. Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
don't think
mean,
that's going to happen.
no, I just kind of going back to what you were saying, Justin Steele to have an ERA above 4. I don't think that's very accurate. I think he's at least maybe around a 3.5 or a 3.3.
Yeah,
It's not gonna, go light Major League Baseball on fire or anything. But I don't believe he's gonna have an ERA above 4. Imanaga, with Japanese pitchers, that's hard to project
right.
sometimes unless they're absolute studs and they throw gas, like Sasaki.
Well, he's not
But
even pitched in the major league, so we don't
right,
know. But Ohtani, you're right. Ohtani looked really good, even in his first year. I guess he
yeah.
didn't pitch his first year, but he looked good right away.
I'd be curious to know what is the PECOTA projections on Otani back,
Yeah,
a few years ago. So I mean, I don't believe Imanaga is gonna have a 5 point whatever. What did you say, 5.08 or something?
yeah.
That's extremely
That's
egregious.
Patrick Corbin level bad.
Patrick Corbin level. Hey, you watch it, buddy. That's my guy right there. No, 81 wins. So kind of looking at the overall total, I think that's for where we're at. It's not too, you would say that's not too unrealistic. 81 wins with, however, Craig Counsell as your manager. You throw in Craig Counsell, he's probably good for what, 4? I'd say about 4 or 5 more wins than
hmm
what David Ross had, just with managing the bullpen alone a lot better than what Rossi did. Then you also don't account for, I'm assuming, Bellinger. Bellinger's not in this equation. So if Bellinger signs, I think he had somewhere around a 4 WAR.
Yeah,
So that, in itself, obviously he did give up the hard contact for a higher average. And so really I was seeing a comparison about him that his WAR really projects to be about 1.4 based on his,
Oof.
which is on the level of Leody Taveras.
That's
Shout
a
out to
fine
my
player,
boy.
Leody Taveras, the champion
So,
Rangers.
I don't think 81 wins is completely realistic. I mean, PECOTA has their own opinion, and I mean, obviously there is a reason behind it. We don't have Bellinger still. We could still sign maybe Matt Chapman as well.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some questions around what we do with Morel, but that's another conversation. So, I mean, I would say it's a little low. I think it's personally a little low. I would say I would put us at least at 83, maybe 84 from where we finished. I believe what was it, 83 and 79
Yeah.
was the 23 finish. So I would say we're at least at that, or possibly even maybe a couple wins more, maybe 84, 85.
Yeah, I mean, Stroman was injured a lot last year, so you lost Stroman was dominant last year until he got injured, or until the London series, and then he got hurt. He was bad for 2.5 months of the season. So if you're looking at his body of work versus Imanaga, that's tough to compare the two. I would say I'm hoping Imanaga is an upgrade. Steele is good. Tyone, look, they finished at 82, 83 wins this year if Tyone ends up having another 4.8 ERA season. But he figured out a lot last year. We think we forget about this. PCA rose to AAA to the bigs even. So he's going to make an impact. They traded for Michael Bush. There's question marks on this team for sure, but they figured out quite a bit. Alzolay turned into a closer last year. Leiter, Merryweather turned into bottom back end relievers, high leverage relievers. They signed Hector Neris. The bullpen looks good. They could still even make another fringe bullpen signing or add a high leverage bullpen signing, a proven arm. There's still a lot they could do. Zips has Bellinger around 2.4 WAR. So if you added a few WAR from Counsell and 2 WAR from Bellinger, just that alone gets you to about 86. So I think 86, 87 could win you the division. I think that's the projection right now. And no one is very bullish on the Brewers. Brewers do not look good. They lost Corbin Burns to the Orioles. They might lose Brandon Woodruff to the Cubs. Another little fun thing as we're recording here the week after the Super Bowl is that Brandon Woodruff would be eligible to be signed and immediately placed in the 60-day IL, would not need a 40-man roster spot, would not need anyone to be DFA'd or dropped, placed through waivers. So that's a benefit to any team that signs him. The Cubs are thinking about him or Liam Hendricks. Those guys have been in the news. So that won't affect their 2024 win, but that could affect the outlook of the team as well. Um, there's
Hopefully. Dansby Swanson too, just real quick. I was gonna say, I believe he'll regress back to the mean or progress back to however you look at it.
regress, yeah.
Regress, yeah. So I don't think he's gonna have as bad as a year. No, it wasn't a terrible year, but I don't believe those were relatively normal numbers for Swanson.
What did you not like about Swanson? Was it clutch time?
Clutch time, I mean, I feel like he could have hit for a little bit more power than he did last year. What were his numbers?
Yeah.
Do we have numbers? Let's say.
I mean, he only had 3 less home runs. That's kind of why I wasn't sure. His RBIs went down quite a bit. So I would like to see him. His walk rate jumped and his K rate dropped. So I guess if you're hoping for his K rate to go back up and his power to go up, he's never hit above 27 homers. So it's not like he's Jason Hayward and you signed him and then he hit only 12 or 13 home runs. He hit 22 with 80 ribbies. So I would like him obviously to hit 90 RBIs in a season, but
Mhm.
80 to me is fine. He's a Gold Glove shortstop. So I think getting him off his feet, it's hard for him to play less than 160 games. He played 147 last year. That's probably what they should target again, maybe 130, 140. But yeah, I think clutch time might be the key. Bellinger was clutch and Yan Gomes was clutch last year.
Right.
So if the Cubs can re-sign Bellinger and then get Swanson to hit even marginally better in the clutch, that'll improve their outlook for sure. Um, and
2022, he hit 277.
okay.
2023, he hit 244. So
I
his
mean,
batting.
average doesn't tell the whole picture though, right? It's all
No,
about
but
OPS.
yeah, yeah, OPS is, you would like it above what, like 800?
His OPS dropped about 30 points last year. So it did go down a considerable amount
Right.
from, 776 to 744. So
For the big contract, you'd like him to live up to a little bit more loftier numbers, or maybe a little bit higher, maybe a higher slug, but
yeah, I mean, he was like in the 420 to 440 range for slug and dropped to 416. So he needs to get his slug up. I mean, but if you just look at the outlook of the team, it's hard. A lot of people on the Cubs Twitterverse are pretty negative because of how the offseason could have gone. It's gone bad for everybody. This has been a very incomplete offseason. It's been worse than the lockout season where there was actually a flurry of moves followed by a lockout, followed by a bunch of more moves. There wasn't anything that spurred any roster moves this offseason for really any team besides the Dodgers. They got richer as a team. So the Cubs are going to rely on their farm system, but they we just have to be less negative, I guess, about the team and just let it all happen. Let the burners turn on, the oil drop into the pan, some garlic, some onions, possibly a marinade. Those things all have to happen. But unfortunately, it's happening really late in the off season, and it's still relying a lot on either Mervis or Bush to be good at first.
mhm.
Now, if that Bellinger signing does happen, I still think it's a good off season because again, people say we didn't add anything to the offense. You're going to add stability. Like we're talking, just looking at Swanson's numbers again, I realized he cut his strikeout rate down. Bellinger cut his strikeout rate down. Happ doesn't strike out a lot. He walks a lot. Horner has a low strikeout rate, high contact rate. Michael Bush is a good contact guy. So you're adding another contact hitter who has some power with Michael Bush. Or I should say he has good walk numbers. He does strike out a decent amount, but he also walks a decent amount too. Adding a high walk guy with good power to the lineup. So technically, you add a little bit to the lineup with Bellinger because of PCA and Bush, and then bringing the same guys back, bringing Seiya back, given that he's started to hold into his own a little bit better. And
Right.
there's speed on the team. There's a little bit more of everything. And we mentioned something offline for another pod another day. But Christopher Morel dropping it, if he could drop his strikeout rate down below 30%, even to the 20s, you see have something like that, and he plays average third base. Now you have a really productive lineup. You have power hitters everywhere. Your bench looks pretty good. There's a lot of enticing things here. It does suck that they didn't add any super high impact guys, and there's still some question marks. But the Bellinger is the key missing piece. If they don't have Bellinger, I will consider it almost a failed offseason because they didn't dramatically make the team better.
Right.
They'd have to, like we talked about, find a way last pod, find a way to pivot from Bellinger. Now, if they don't sign Bellinger, but I'll give you this, if they get like both Montgomery and Matt Chapman, I would consider that a successful offseason, especially if we see good stuff from PCA and Bush, guys like that. Because the pitching is what we really wanted to see. You lose Stroman, you wanted to see them, boom, upgrade. They didn't make any massive upgrades. They're just relying on Cade Horton. They're just putting all their chips in on Cade Horton, getting a 21, doubling down on 10 or whatever it is. I don't gamble, so I'm just throwing things out there that sound right. But
Yeah.
Cade Horton, they're gambling on him being literally a playoff pitcher next year. And if that turns out, great. But if it doesn't turn out, they're going to have to spend a lot next offseason, right? Which
Right.
luckily there's a bevy of arms out there, aces that they could go and get. So
Namely Brandon Woodruff.
he's available right now. They
Yeah,
better get him.
they
If
should
if
definitely get on that.
if they
Um,
if they get him Woodruff and Hendricks, that's a pretty successful offseason because now you've got a closer in 2025
right.
and an ace starter in 2025.
I like Hendricks. I like his story. Obviously he was battling, I believe, what was it, Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Hmm.
Um, it's just tremendous how he's been able to come back. He did have elbow surgery, so he's expected to be out until what, the All-Star break, I think,
I
of
thought he
this
was gonna be
year.
out all year, but I could be
He's
wrong.
aiming for All-Star break of 2024. So this year.
Well, that's solid then. That
Yeah,
gate
so
makes me a little bit more excited.
we'll see if he's able to pull that off. That's the goal, but we do have a bevy of right-handed relief pitchers, so I'd like to maybe explore the market for a Tanner Scott or
Hmm.
a left-handed relief pitcher.
Right. That could add a lot of stability. I mean, even having a nice pecking order in your bullpen, having some certainty. Feels like the Cubs lose a lot of games either figuring out their bullpen or overworking their bullpen and having a manager that doesn't know how to do that.
Right.
So
And that goes
that
back to, who we have now, obviously, with Counsell. Hopefully he's able to kind of remedy that. I mean, I was just looking at speaking to the imbalance on our 40-man roster of pitchers,
mhm.
16 out of the 22 are right-handers.
Wow.
That's a lot. Like
Yeah.
you would like it to be maybe like 60-40, 60% right-handers, maybe 40% left-handers, but that's a huge discrepancy or just huge,
Depends on if your
difference.
righties can get lefties out. Do they have like circle changeups like Kyle Hendricks? Do they
But you've got
have
you've
splitters
got
like Mark
righties
Leiter,
like, yeah, lighter obviously does really well against
Neris?
lefties. Neris or Neris, however you say his name, but
Hmm.
so I mean, they have guys that are righties that can get lefties out, but just in case, obviously you want to match up if you can.
Yeah. And how many of those lefties are starters too? Almost all of them, right? If you look at pure bullpen arms, it's just Luke Little and maybe was the other guy, Bailey Horn.
Bailey Horn, yeah.
It does.
Thomas Pannone is a starter now, so
Oh,
there's
he's not on the 40 man. He's not on the 40 man
no,
roster.
he's not. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would not be good.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us here on the Brotherly Cubs podcast. If you have thoughts on today's podcast, comment them below. Or if you have another interesting topic, let us know. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, or join the conversation with us on Twitter at Brotherly Cubs or Spotify and Apple Podcasts at Brotherly Cubs as well. I am John. This is my brother Zach, and we will see you next week.
Listen to this crowd.